Hello, my name is Mary Grace Glazier, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this program, Conversations with Seniors, presented by the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. And when we look at Conversations with Seniors, I'd like to start by asking you, have you ever struggled with how to say things just the right way? Or have you just not said anything because you were afraid of how it would be received? Or perhaps you've said what you felt needed to be said and it didn't go very well? Now, another option would be something needed to be said, you said it, it went well, everyone's happy. That's our ultimate outcome that we're looking for. And in particular, in our conversations with seniors, that we leave them honored, we leave them valued in the sense that they've been well taken care of. And that's our goal for today, is to provide you with the tools so that you can do that when you have those important conversations with your seniors, either your seniors in your family or the seniors that you work with on a daily basis. So when we look at conversations with seniors, let's look at some of the difficult conversations that we have. There was a study done looking at difficult topics, and what 42% of the respondents said it was difficult to talk to their parents or to their seniors about needing to leave home. 30% said a difficult topic was asking the senior to give up driving. 11% said the difficult topic was talking to seniors about having enough money and their financial well-being. 11% said that they had concerns about discussing the senior's health and their well-being. And then 5% said they had no concerns, that they could talk to seniors about anything. So when we look at those difficult topics, and that difficult topic of giving up driving, I want to tell you a little bit about it. There was a study done by Liberty Mutual. And what Liberty Mutual did is they studied the adult children of our seniors, and then they also interviewed the seniors about giving up driving. So let's look what they said. 75% of the adult children said they haven't talked about driving safety issues. 58% said they think their parents would be uncomfortable having this conversation. And 38% believe that their parents would be angered by that kind of conversation. So you can kind of see that the adult children don't necessarily want to have those conversations with their seniors. Now, let's look at what the seniors said. Only 24% of seniors said that they would find the conversation uncomfortable. Only 9% said they would be angered. And 92% of seniors said their adult children have a right to raise the issue with them. Let me say that one more time. 92% of seniors say their adult children have a right to raise the issue of driving safety with them. So can you see there's an opportunity there? Our seniors actually want to have those conversations, but many times it's our own fears, our own concerns that stop us in having those conversations. So what those statistics tell us about the adult child's perspective, they don't want to have the conversations. What do those statistics tell us about the senior's perspective? Well, they probably wouldn't get that upset about it, and 92% would say you have the right, their children have the right to have that conversation with them. So it's nice to look at other people having those conversations, right? What I'm going to ask you is, what can you see about your willingness or your reluctance to bring up difficult topics with the seniors in your life? And here's what I'm going to suggest to you, is actually those conversations can have a ripple effect. And those ripple effects can actually bring about a richer and deeper relationship with our seniors. And at the same time, if not done well, it can go the other way. And it can bring even more trouble to a troubled relationship. Again, what my commitment is in our conversation today is that you have the tools, you have some resources to use in having those conversations with seniors that are going to enrich, enliven, and add value to the relationship. So in this webinar, our outcomes are to help you clarify your intentions and commitments in your conversations with seniors, to be aware of and practice removing barriers to good communication. We want to provide you with the tools for structuring those difficult conversations, and then also help you build your comfort level in having those important conversations. So in achieving those outcomes, our agenda is going to be to have an overview of what our seniors experience as they age. Then we're going to have some pre-work for you to do before you actually have the conversation with your senior. And then we're going to talk about the conversation. We'll also have a dialogue about continuing the dialogue with your seniors, and also, if needed, getting additional assistance. Because one of the things that we want to know, or that we want to be aware of, is that sometimes it's easier for a third party to have those conversations with our seniors versus us having those conversations, especially when it's in a personal relationship with seniors in our family. So we'll look at that as well. And I have this great quote for you, and the quote is, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the entire staircase." And in many cases, when we're dealing with seniors, when we're dealing with the aging process, when we're going through the process where they're seeing the end of their journey and seeing death as the inevitable end of the journey, we don't see the entire staircase, but faith is taking it one step at a time. And that's what we're talking about in our conversations with seniors. So the first step that we want to take is our pre-work and understanding the senior's world. And again, we'll look at the barriers to effective communication. We'll also look at some pitfalls. I've put together an agenda for you to use in having those conversations with your seniors. And just a couple of tips: allow for mistakes. It may not always be perfect, but if you're speaking to your senior from your heart, if you're speaking to your senior with love, ultimately you're creating a future that looks bright for the seniors. So in our pre-work, the quote that I would share with you is, "Do unto others as they would have them done unto." You remember the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, what I'm saying here, or what the Platinum Rule says, is to look from the senior's perspective and how would they want to be done unto. Kind of an interesting thought, isn't it? And as we look at understanding the seniors, we want to look at the changes that take place. And in a broad perspective, the changes are physical, they're cognitive. There are also changes in social structures for our seniors, financial concerns. We'll look at the issues of loss and then also the issue of resiliency. All right, so in understanding the changes that take place with our seniors, the first thing that we're going to look at are the physical changes that take place and the sensory changes that take place. I'm going to give you some statistics here. 1 out of 3 seniors over the age of 60 will experience difficulty with hearing. When they get over 85, over half of the seniors have difficulty with hearing. Now, you might say, okay, Dad has a hearing issue. I need to enunciate. I need to make sure that I have eye contact when I'm speaking to him. We can accommodate hearing changes or hearing loss. Well, what I'm going to suggest to you is that hearing loss is a multifaceted issue. If a senior is uncomfortable with background noise, think about it. They may no longer want to go to church. They may not like being at family gatherings. They may find it difficult to be in public places because of the background noise. And in some cases, it actually hurts their ears to have so much noise at one time. As a result, our seniors may tend to stay at home more. They become isolated. As a result of that isolation, often depression. And as they stay at home longer, it decreases their quality of life. So you can see that hearing issues have a profound impact on our senior. And we just need to be aware of these things and understanding why sometimes they might get frustrated with us, or sometimes why they might get irritated when they feel that people are mumbling or confused when there's too many things going on at one time. The other thing that we want to look at is the sense of smell. As we age, we begin to lose our sense of smell. In fact, 4 out of 5 seniors will experience some change in their sense of smell. Now, where that comes into play is that our sense of smell impacts our taste. And as we age, we lose taste buds. And in particular, if a senior has a denture, a plate, all of our taste buds are on the roof of our mouth. If you have a plate, you can't taste food. And if you can't taste food, why would you want to eat? Did you know that an emerging trend among our seniors and their nutrition is malnourishment? And many people suggest that that malnourishment is a result of the loss of smell, the loss of taste as we age. And then finally, seniors have a loss of vision, either being able to see the distance or being able to see up close. There may be issues with glaucoma, with cataracts, with macular degeneration. All of those things alter how they see. Now, think about that when you're watching television. Think about that when you pick up a magazine. Think about that when you're trying to read a hymnal or sing from a hymnal and you have difficulty seeing. It has so many impacts on our seniors' life as they go through these physical changes. And the other changes that they go through are things like changes in their heart, in their lungs. As we age, the heart muscle thickens and its ability to use oxygen lessens. Our lung capacity decreases as we age, meaning that we don't have as much oxygen. Now, I was working with a senior client recently, 84 years old, busy bee, most of the time, nonstop action, activity. What I noticed recently, though, is that she'd be doing things and getting things done, but she would stop and have to breathe. I could tell that her ability to use oxygen and to get oxygen was being diminished. And you'll see this with your seniors. So if you take a senior to the mall, that might be all the activity that they can have for that day. It's also interesting, my senior, when I check up with her on the phone, I'll say, well, how was your day? And she said, well, I'm really feeling lazy today. And again, that's our senior, our very busy senior, slowing down because of the physiological changes that are taking place. The other thing that we know happens as we age is we lose muscle mass. We lose muscle mass in favor of fat. Sorry, I just had to say that, right? And you might say, okay, so I lose muscle. What's that about? Well, think about opening a jar and the muscles that requires. Think about picking up your groceries or walking upstairs. The muscles that are required in doing that. And can you see, if you're losing muscle mass, you're losing strength, those day-to-day activities become more and more of a challenge as you age. And of course, so much is written about osteoporosis now. And men, they're beginning to discover osteoporosis in men as well. So these are some things that we need to be aware of. As we age, we lose the ability to manufacture bone. And we lose bone now faster than our body is manufacturing it. That's why injuries are so many falls result in a break. And we know that if a senior falls and breaks their hip, 1 out of 5 or 20% may die from that fall, are the statistics that are showing. So those are some of the physiological changes that take place as we age. I liked this quote. It said, "Life is like playing a violin solo in public and learning the instrument as one goes along." There's so much that we learn as we age, and isn't it true as we look back saying, I wish I would have? Well, this gives us that opportunity to know now, to prepare for our own future and to help our seniors as well. So we've looked at the physiological changes. Let's now take a look at the cognitive changes. One of the things that we know is that as we age, we have a decline in our mental processing speed. Now, we don't lose intelligence as we age. We always retain the ability to learn. The difference, though, is that we process information slower as we age. If you think about it, I liken our memory to a file cabinet. We have all of these different life experiences that we file in the file cabinet. And when we go to make a decision, when the senior goes to make a decision, they have all of these files that they have to go through. That's a lot of files to make a decision. So our cognitive processing slows as we age. Now, think about it as well. That file cabinet is filled with files. It's harder to get new files in there, right? Well, we store newer information more slowly. That's why repetition is so important with our seniors, because they may not get it on the first time around, they may not get it on the second time around. Without being condescending and patronizing, know that we need to support our seniors as they have these cognitive changes. Now, this assumes, of course, there's not dementia or Alzheimer's involved, which in a case is a whole nother presentation and webinar that we have at the Society for Certified Senior Advisors. The other thing that we want to know about cognitive changes is the reaction times are slowed. And that's why driving can be such a huge issue for seniors as we move along and as we age. Now, what I would like for you to think about is, have you seen these signs of aging manifesting in your seniors? Have you seen them in yourself? And can you begin to get a sense of how we need to change our communication to correspond with the physiological and the cognitive changes that our seniors are going through as they age? Now, the other changes that we see as we age are changes in social structure. Have you noticed that families are changing? In fact, what we're finding now is, do you remember when it was a big deal when we had family members across the country, right? Now we have family members around the globe. So our whole family structure is changing. Also, people are waiting longer to get married, waiting longer to have children, having fewer children. So we've got that on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we have people living longer. We have more centenarians, people over 100, than ever before. And if you think about it, you could have a 100-year-old with an 80-year-old son who has a 60-year-old daughter, a 40-year-old son, a 20-year-old daughter who's just had her child, right? So we're now having 5 and 6 generations living at the same time, less and less what they call the beanpole structure. And the question then is, who's caring for whom? The other issue is that we have more divorces now. And what that means is that we have more stepchildren, more step-grandparents, and it again leaves us wondering who's going to care for whom when we deal with caregiving. And then there are also issues with housing. And is it safe for our senior to age at home? Is it safe for them to stay in their community? Are there other places where it would be more appropriate for them to live? So you can see all of these shifting factors, all of these shifting variables, and the experiences of our seniors as they're going through this process. Which leads us to the topic of loss. Can you imagine the sense of loss as someone loses the physical ability to hear and not be able to go to the opera anymore? That's a loss. A social status. If you've been married for 50 or 60 years and you lose your spouse, no longer are you John's wife. No longer are you Marilyn's husband. There's a change in social status. There's a change in roles. And then there's the challenge of giving or receiving care. If you have a senior who's very independent, very self-sufficient, very difficult for them to give up that independence, a sense of loss, a sense of grieving. And then they're dealing with also the death of their peers and their own demise. So you can see that there are a whole host of issues that our seniors are dealing with as they age. And I liked this quote that said, "Time which changes some people does not alter the image we have retained of them, nor the image that they have of themselves." So as our seniors are experiencing all of these various losses at different times, can you see how important it is to be giving them a sense of control and to having them feel safe as you're having these conversations with them? So as we look at having the conversation, again, the key ingredient is to create a safe space and to give the senior a sense of control. Because again, the physiological changes, the cognitive changes, the changes in the family, things that they cannot control, creates a very unsafe, very uncertain environment for them. So as we go into having the conversation, the key is to keep it safe. So before you go in, you need to do the work yourself. Acknowledge your concerns, your fears, your hopes. You may want to talk to a trusted advisor before you have this conversation with a senior, a clergy member, a financial advisor, an elder law attorney. Take this opportunity to really look at the value of your relationship with your senior. And then, once you know all of your concerns, all of your fears about having this conversation with the senior, I would ask you to put those aside. And we're putting those aside because what we want to have at the best interest is the best interest of the senior, and to have their best interest at heart as we go into having these difficult conversations with them. And what that requires? Well, it requires courage. It requires being generous and sharing of yourself, having compassion for the senior as you're dealing with them, being honest, appropriately so, being persistent, because again, remember, they may not remember conversations right off as they go through their file cabinet to find those conversations. The other thing is that many of us with our careers are driven by our to-do list and getting things done, having a sense of urgency. For our senior, they may not be that concerned with their to-do list anymore. And what they're really concerned for is the relationship that they have with you. So your focus is on wanting to preserve and maintain and honor that relationship while taking care of the senior and making sure they stay safe. So you've got to be willing to change your mind. You may go through into a conversation with one set of suppositions. The senior may have something else that they're dealing with that you're unaware of. So be willing to change your mind. And when all else fails, see point one, and that would be courage. So when we're working with seniors, there are some barriers to the communication. Judgments, feeling that you have the right answer and their answers are the wrong answers. Again, the importance of an open mind is absolutely imperative. And again, having the answer as the only answer. There are lots of answers out there, and we really want to be at our most creative when we're working with our senior to maintain their quality of life. Being argumentative. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because sometimes we've argued with our parents our whole life. We argue now. Doesn't mean we don't love them. But as a form of communication, not very effective. As soon as you see an argument coming into play, you know that the environment's no longer safe. You know that the senior no longer has a sense of control. Lost the game in this conversation. Time to stop and start again at another time. Same thing with getting angry. When you're trying to force an issue with the senior, they're going to force right back. And especially if it's dealing with a loss issue, like a loss of a home, loss of driving, all of those different things, the more you try to force an issue, the more they're going to hold on because they don't want to lose anything more. So getting angry, getting defensive. Anytime you have that experience, and we're human beings, we're going to have those experiences. The key is being aware of them and knowing when to stop, when to honor the relationship, and when to continue the conversation at a later time. Now, if you feel that it's good to go on, there are two approaches. There's a direct approach where you get yes or no answers. There's an indirect approach, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. When we look at the direct approach, I would really like to emphasize that there are some important things in the direct approach with the senior. One is your tone of voice. The second is, can you use humor when you're being direct? And the third is the gentleness with which you take the gentleness you use in those direct questions. And most importantly, if you're going to be direct with your senior, you don't want to be upset when you do that, because it will not go well. So here's some, and when you're direct, it can also have the effect of having the senior feel put on the spot or feel attacked. Some direct questions. Dad, is it true you hit the mailbox yesterday? Mom, are you having trouble keeping track of your pills? Mom, would it be okay if we had someone help you clean the house from time to time? You see, those are yes or no questions. And you want to be careful with those, but for some seniors, they can be very effective. Now, when we look at the indirect approach, the first thing that we'll look at is personal anecdotes or personal stories. An example would be, you know, Mom, when I recently had my surgery, I had to fill out advance directives. It was really overwhelming when I had to do it, but I was so glad to get it done. And my doctor's office now has it, the hospital has it. Have you ever thought about advance directives? Or do you want to see mine? It's an awkward subject, but I really want you to have the information you need, and I really want to have the information that you have so that if I ever need it, it's there. So that's one way of telling a story. You use your personal example and then give them the opportunity to respond. There's another way of having an indirect approach with your senior, and those are reflective questions. And reflective questions are very, very important because they help the senior know what they think. Sometimes we don't really know what we think or how we feel about something until we have a conversation with someone. So some reflective questions would be, what do you like most about where you live now? Do you think there's another way that we could help you get a ride to events downtown tonight? If you don't want to drive at night, what other options could we look at? What do you think about Mr. Smith retiring? Do you ever see yourself retiring? What concerns do you have? So those reflective questions really help the senior begin to sort things through for themselves. And it's a very powerful tool to use in working with our seniors. Another way to communicate with your seniors, use examples. Hey, Mom, did you see the article in the newspaper about medical identity theft? Isn't it really incredible the things people are coming up with right now? I'm wondering if I should look at my pharmacy records. Have you looked at yours recently? Or, there was a story on the news last night about some new transportation that's coming up for seniors, being made available for seniors now. Isn't that cool? So those kinds of conversations are very non-threatening, very safe, and give our seniors either the opportunity to engage in that conversation or move on. And I will tell you, in the conversations that I have with seniors, generally, I don't necessarily have a complete conversation as much as I get in little sound bites. And then she'll come back later and pick up there and bring it back into a conversation a few days later or a few weeks later. So we really want to know that these conversations are things that happen over time, and that in establishing this relationship with our seniors, we deepen our relationship and we're really able to serve them. I liked this quote from Omaha, an Indian chief, who said, "Ask questions from the heart and you'll be answered from the heart." And I really think that if you're coming with the best intentions with the senior in mind, you're going to find out what they really want and really be able to serve them the way that you would want to be served, serve them the way that they would want to be served. And that's really what it's all about. Now, I've created here a sample agenda for you. So you might want to start out by acknowledging the difficulty of the situation and look at the facts. Be gentle, be sensitive. We talked about asking questions, be curious to find out what they're thinking or what they want to know. And then identify an outcome that you're both looking for, the future you want to create. And again, we have to be open to their thoughts and we have to be willing to think outside the box. And we really want to be inquiring into what would help the senior create the next stage of life to be the best part of their life. And if it's appropriate, some concrete actions and things that you'll do to support them. So in the conversation, there are the dangers of formulas. So I'm not intending that you take this agenda and go through it step by step with your senior. But what I'm suggesting to you is that it gives you a format or a template for structuring the conversation that can sometimes help it not be so emotional and more fact and focused. It's important to have a plan and to be open-minded about that plan, to understand the individual, to have that commitment and express that commitment to the senior that your priority is their quality of life and that they have the highest quality of life possible and that you continually create pathways for conversations. Some pitfalls in those conversations. Taking things personally. Very often their responses have nothing to do with you and everything to do with what they're experiencing physiologically, what they're experiencing cognitively, what they're experiencing in their families, in their communities. Another pitfall is to become defensive. Well, you're only acting in their best interest. Again, time for a timeout. The other thing that's a pitfall is falling back into our old patterns. And sometimes the funniest and the best thing to do is say, look, I feel like I'm 13 years old again talking to you, Mom. There we are again. And just laugh with it. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with them as you're having these difficult conversations. So really, I loved this quote. In later life, you can't hide your true colors as you approach the autumn of your life. And our seniors are who they are. And what we need to do is, if the conversation is not going well, reaffirm our commitment to them. Maybe take a break. Bring in a sibling if that would help. In some cases, it might not help so much. But if it does, certainly that would be an option. Or again, get outside assistance through your clergy, through your community, through volunteer organizations. There are lots of resources out there, and then continue the conversation at a later date. We have some resources to provide you with, the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. On our website, there's a resource page. Some of the books that I got this material from are books like Crucial Conversations, The Art of Focused Conversations, and How to Say It with Seniors. And just really trust, if you have the best interests at heart, that's what's going to communicate to your senior, and that's what you want them to know, is that they're loved, they're valued, and they're honored, and that we create the best life for them that we can. So again, for more information, here's information on the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. Please contact us if there's anything that we can do to support you in having these important conversations with your senior. Thank you.